Hey, what's up everybody, Nexel here. Today we are playing Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, and it is the end of the first day for the Hades Cup. Now, I was fortunate enough to be able to get through all the quests, so as you can see here, all of them have all the objectives filled out, all the way through to round 15. So I was able to beat all of them, and instead of going through each one in this first video, I want to talk about the general strategies I used, and hopefully that get some people started. It helps accelerate their game just a little bit more. So the first thing that I did, and this was kind of almost necessary in every single round that I did, was have a medal with second chance on it. Especially if you have one with second chance 2 on a buffer like 0.2 Kyrie, illustrated KH2 Kyrie. That's really good because second chance will buy you that extra turn, and it is used for an easy, it's not necessarily a glitch, but a strategy that you could use against Cloud, and I think it's either round 12 or round 13. So second chance becomes very, very relevant when you're doing that round. It also is very helpful for the other rounds, and definitely prefer second chance 2 over second chance 1, because second chance 2 has a proc rate of 69%, whereas second chance 1 has a proc rate of 32%. I know 69% for second chance 2 seems really, really high, but hear me out, even with plus 21 skill perk, I still did not get the activation sometimes. So what we want to do is lower the chance of RNG or random number generating, pretty much screwing us over. So try and equip all the skill perks that you can. Try to make that second chance go off as much as possible. You only get one per battle, so again, just try and have it go off, because buying that extra turn will buy you pretty much an extra life, and that allows you to get one more turn at defeating the enemy. The next general tip that I have is, let me see if I could pull it up here. If you have this medal, it goes without explanation that you might need it later down the line. So Hainer Pentalette, it's going to buff your general defense by 1 tier for 2 turns, and then your power speed magic defense by 1 tier for 2 turns. If you have one with extra attack, this becomes instantly a fantastic medal. Even if you don't have one with extra attack, there are the copy medals, so HD Nominee, so Key Art Bonds, Key Art Air, Key Art Beginnings. All those are copy medals that you can use in order to buff yourself in order to not get knocked out. If you didn't get the Hainer Pentalette medal, because I know that is pretty far gone, but you were able to get the Pooh Tigger and Rabbit medal, that's actually really good. I explained it in an earlier video. Because the Pooh Tigger and Rabbit medal costs less, you're allowed to put better defensive skills on there. So Hainer Pentalette costs 4 gauges, meaning that pretty much the only skill you're going to want to put on there is going to be some sort of SP gauge decreasing to decrease the cost of the medal. This one, because it's cheap enough, you can throw on a second chance, you can throw on defense boost, you can throw on a lot of things that can make this medal work for you in your favor. So like defense boost 3, defense boost 4, and again, if you have extra attack, that's going to make this medal so much more useful for you. The next general piece of advice I'm going to use is having a enemy defense minus 60% trait. These become really relevant, especially when the enemy gets to a high enough level where when you're trying to buff your medals, it's only doing 1 damage. Having these minus 60 traits is going to make all the difference in damage, because like I said in a previous video, lowering the defense after a certain point becomes more relevant than buffing yourself. So having ground enemy defense or aerial enemy defense minus 60 might just be enough to push for all the damage that you need. If we look at the rounds, most of the enemies are ground enemies, meaning if you have the ground enemy defense minus 60, it'll be more useful to you than the aerial enemy defense minus 60. So round 15 is ground, and then round 14 is also ground, 13 is ground, it is 12. 12 is going to be ground. 11 is going to be ground. So a lot of the enemies are going to be ground enemies, meaning that ground enemy defense minus 60 is going to be more beneficial for you if you have that one. The next general tip I'm going to give, it bounces off that same concept, is debuffing the enemy's general defense. So if you have something like HD Ventus, HD Wisdom from Sora, Maleficent Dragon, again, lowering general defense does more for you than lowering power speed magic defense. I'll try and do a theory proof video for that later, but you just got to take my word on this one that lowering the general defense is more beneficial than lowering the power speed magic defense. So, if you have these medals, some of the rounds they'll be necessary, just put them early on, so that way your damage dealers later on will do the maximum amount of damage that they possibly can. This starts to get more specific towards enemies that have counters on them, but using single target medals becomes very relevant when it comes to big groups of enemies and some of them have timers on them. So for example, round 15, I had to use Aladdin and Abu here in order to buff my last attack while at the same time not triggering those effects that would be damaging to me. So poison, paralysis, or sleep. So if you have single target buffers, that can be really beneficial for you down the line just because of the counter enemies, the ones that have, you know, that ticking time over to the top of them. These become very relevant. I had to use, this is actually the exact setup that I used for round 15. So having single target buffers can be very, very useful for you for those. Lastly, this is just a general piece of advice. This is as just general as it gets. Have something with defense boost on it. I personally try to avoid using Defense Boost 3 or Defense Boost 4 because I still have those as skill medals that I might want to give to something else later on. So this is just a heads up letting you know you can get by with Defense Boost 2. Is it harder? Yes. By a lot? No. So again, if you have Hainer Pencilette, it really, really lowers the RNG necessary in order to survive without Defense Boost 3, Defense Boost 4. But if you don't have Hainer Pencilette or you don't have double cast on it, extra attack, if you don't have that on it, having Defense Boost 3 or Defense Boost 4 could genuinely save you. Especially because it's not too much of a difference, but Defense Boost 3 and Defense Boost 4 do have a 39% proc rate in comparison to Defense Boost 2, which only does 37, and it doesn't even lower the damage as much as Defense Boost 3 or Defense Boost 4. So those are my general tips for how to beat the Hades quest. I will try to make videos for the last, I believe the last 7 rounds are the tricky ones. But yeah, those are my general tips. So again, just running through them really quick. Second chance, Hainer Pencilette or Pooh Tigger and Rabbit. Ground or aerial enemy defense minus 60%. Debuffing enemy general defense. Most of the enemies are going to be ground, so again, that ground minus 60 is going to be more useful. Use single hit or single target buffer medals because they become important for counters. And last but not least, the most obvious piece of advice is going to be defense boost. So hopefully that helps you all just accelerate your game with this Hades quest. 6,000 jewels is a lot of jewels, and especially since Sephiroth EX was announced, it's just super exciting to be able to do pretty much 2 pulls for being able to complete this. There are other setups out there. Some of them I saw using pretty much 2 Hainer Pencilettes in their setup at all times. Some of them use Illustrated Vivi instead of 0.2 Kyrie. So you can definitely play around with your Keyblade setups in order to see which one works best for you. These were just general tips. And yeah, I hope they help. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw them down in the comments below, and I will try my best to answer them as timely as I humanly can. But until the next video, everyone, take it easy.